All right, and we are live. What up, though, people? It's your boy Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid, and we're getting closer to this trade deadline. I told you guys I wanted to start bringing a little bit more content during the week, especially with some of the changes going on at the main network. But I'm going to be coming on here maybe 2 times out the week minimum, trying to make sure we do some lives, and then beyond that, I'm going to try and make sure that there's some other kind of recorded content based on the things that are going on. I know that the Pistons, they're not having the season that any of us expected or that any of us wanted or that any of us believe they should have. But I know that there's some of you guys out there who are diehards. You're not jumping off the bandwagon. And that every little move that this team does make or doesn't make, you guys are actually on board. And so for you people out there is why we still do this stuff here. And I'm joined by a very, very special guest from, what is it, the High Notes podcast, right?
Yep, hitting the high notes.
Hitting the high notes. Can you hit the high notes?
Can I? No, I cannot personally. You don't want me to hit the high notes. So
yeah, but listen, I'm joined by Hutran, and we're also part of the Believe Network as well.
That's right.
And as soon as the deal went down, he told me, he was like, you know what, you guys actually might kind of like what he has to offer in terms of and can you pronounce his name?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you want me on here to tell you the correct pronunciation. So you guys now are, you have Simone FONTECCHIO on your team now. So
yeah, I'm really glad that I allowed you to say that one more time for Detroit Pistons fans, so we know how to say his name, and then I'll break down the details of the trade.
Yeah, Simone. So Simone, and then his last name FONTECCHIO. So if you just kind of spell it out, it looks right. It's not FONTECCHIO. It's not fettuccine. It's FONTECCHIO. So
fettuccine, my guy. Yeah, Simone FONTECCHIO. Did I do that right?
FONTECCHIO. You got it. There you go.
yeah. And here, let me break down the actual trade that brought him here, because that was kind of the first shoe to drop for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, before this trade, the first one they made kind of leading up to this was a trade of Marvin Bagley and Isaiah Livers for Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala. And we saw the effect that kind of had on the Pistons offense. We saw their offensive efficiency go up. We saw the three-pointers made and attempted start to go up. We saw better spacing, kind of better flow and better ball movement on this offense. And so this was kind of the second trade to happen. And it was for Simone FONTECCHIO. I got that right?
You got it. You're already a fan. I love it.
Yep. And it was for a 2024 second round pick to the Utah Jazz. And I'm pretty happy about this deal. I really am. When I kind of looked into some of the details of who he is as a player, you start to see exactly what the Pistons might be getting at here. And I looked into some things. I saw that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Simone actually started a little bit for the Utah Jazz as well.
He's the current Jazz small forward. He was, at least. He started from like pretty much December on. He's been the starting small forward for Utah Jazz. So
wow. Yeah, and I saw that his three-pointers attempted and his three-point percentage, some of his other stats, they all took jumps over last season. This year, he's up to 39% shooting from the three-point land, and that's on 4.7 attempts. I also saw that.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I think when the Jazz signed him to a free agent deal, like he was from overseas, right, Europe. A lot of times when you see these European players are signed with NBA teams really want the spacing, being able to have someone who can be out there. If you can shoot, you can make it in the NBA. And when they brought him over, that's I think his quote unquote main skill is 3-point shooting, and then he's shown it. He's a great catch and shoot, spot up shooter. He'll space the floor. You can't leave him open. So the double team's going to come probably from his defender. If you have someone that can find him open on those double teams, he will have open shots.
Dope. Yeah, I was looking at some of the highlights. It looks like he can kind of move and relocate well if the double team or if his player kind of looks away for just a second. He's able to relocate someone on that three-point line. And the thing that I loved is he's one of those shooters that doesn't need kind of a clear path to the rim to get his shot off. It seemed like he can really get his shot off and actually make it at a pretty good clip while being defended or with a hand in his face as well.
Yeah, he's a good shooter. He's a good offensive player. Look, 20, like I know he was starting for the Jazz, but he was only probably playing 20, 23 minutes. That's probably the sweet spot for him, coming off the bench. He can come off the bench, he can start. He can be behind Bojan. If Bojan needs a night off, he can start for Bojan. Simone, he stretches the floor. He's a quick trigger. It's not as quick as Bojan, but he's a very good player. He signed a 2-year, like $5 million deal. He's only on $3 million contract this year. Very friendly contract. And what really, like last year, if you asked me if at the beginning of the season, if you asked me if Simone Fontecchio was going to be on the NBA team next year, I would have told you no. He has improved greatly since November. Since last year, he was playing garbage time. Last year, he was 11th, 12th man in the rotation. Didn't see anything besides shooting from him, and it wasn't even that great last year. This year, his shooting has really steadied, but he's doing other things. He's a pretty good on-ball defender. He's not going to stop Giannis, but he will make Chris Middleton's life really hard for that night, for 48 minutes or however long he plays. He's turned into a pretty good defender, so he's the definition of 3-and-D. He also, something that gets a little overlooked is his rebounding numbers. His rebounding numbers have gotten really good this year. Not really great, but better than you would think. So he grabs boards at a pretty good clip. He grabs big rebounds, offensive and defensive boards. I'm trying to look at his game log real quick from the last couple of games. 6 rebounds last game, 4, 4, 5, 4 the last few games. Somebody has said, as the Jazz fans traded, as the Jazz fans were on Twitter after he got traded, was like, I was betting on Fontecchio's over like 2.5, 3 boards a game and winning money every night. So he will also grab some boards for you. So really great stuff. Jazz fans a little upset that he's gone, because he was a pretty good cog for this Utah Jazz team that started off really rough and have fought their way to 500 ball. And Simone Fontecchio was a big part of that in the last 2 months from December on. So a big hit to the Jazz. The Jazz are obviously kind of sellers to the deadline. But for the Pistons, an early second-round pick, really, really nice from the Pistons. From the Wizards, really. And then, the draft rights to Gabriel Procida and Kevin Knox. So I thought it was kind of,
Yeah, and I'm glad you said it. Yeah, that's the other part of this deal as well. When it first got reported, it was reported that Simone Fontecchio was being traded for a second-round pick. But the other kind of half of that deal was Kevin Knox and Gabriel Procida. And I have to say this appropriately. Detroit Pistons fan favorite, even though he's never put on a Pistons jersey, Gabriel Procida. This was a player that a lot of us were wondering, like, what is he going to do for us? We couldn't wait to get him over here. The highlights from overseas were like, yo, all right, let's see what we got here. We've been waiting a couple years to be able to see him in a Detroit Pistons uniform. But, if a player's not playing for you, and someone like Kevin Knox, who we've kind of, I think, traded him at the deadline or involved him in some trades a couple times now, it's, what are you going to do? I think that we need a person who can come in here and kind of play rotation minutes. I've been saying for a long time, the Pistons need NBA players in their rotation, not just a bunch of young guys who I think will develop into really, really good players, but you need them surrounded by some good incremental moves, some decent vets, some really good shooters, in my opinion, and some floor spacers. But more so than anything, man, I have been screaming this whole season at the fact that they have nobody in this squad that really relocates. Nobody on this squad that's really cutting to the rim. Asar Thompson does that really well, but his minutes have been up and down, up and down, up and down, and he doesn't necessarily shoot the ball nearly as well as Simone is going to shoot the ball for the Detroit Pistons. Some of the stuff that I did see from Simone beyond just three-point shooting, which is what I believe one of his best traits are coming into the Detroit Pistons, was his ability to dribble drive a little bit, his ability to kind of handle the ball. I saw him do a couple pump fakes, get into the lane, get to the foul line, and then off ball, I saw him as well as relocating along the three-point line when a guard was diving or getting the pick and roll and coming into the paint, that he was able to actually cut and finish in the paint as well, as kind of a taller, plays a little bit bigger than what the 6'7" that he's listed at. And so, like we said, this is not, just from a Detroit Pistons perspective side of thing and for fans, this isn't the deal that everybody was hoping for, like the splash or the highly consequential move. But when you do look at the fact that this offense took a tick forward with players like Danilo and Muscala, Gallinari and Muscala, it's another move that I believe kind of puts another NBA rotation guy on the Pistons roster and allows them to play a little bit more balanced, I would say, alongside our young guys like K Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duren, to get somebody else to kind of play. But what else? Is there anything else we should know about Simone?
My question for you, that was my question, because when this trade happened, from the Jazz perspective, I think pretty like I did a trade deadline special on my podcast earlier in the week, and Simone's name came up, and it was more of the look. He's 28. He's going to be a restricted free agent next year. On the Jazz side, the only reason I think the Jazz traded him is that I think they decided at some point they probably weren't going to bring him back in the offseason. He can command, like someone's saying that he might get a 10 million seems like a lot per year, but 5 to 7, I think is, something maybe right below the mid-level exception. I think the Jazz are just trying to keep their cap sheet clear. So that's probably the reason why they were just trying to shop him around. He's a great player. Like I said, I think Jazz fans love him. I think the team loved him. Just one of those sort of a win-win for everybody. Because I looked at Detroit's roster, because people were a little confused because we had all thought it was reported by Tony Jones of The Athletic last night that Simone's name was popping up, and teams like Boston and Milwaukee, a contender, was looking for him. And I think Simone Fontecchio is a rotation player on any team in the league. He'll crack anybody's top 8, top 9 rotation, because I think he's become a very solid player. Again, he's not a big splash like you said, but he's going to be very solid, steady force, especially if Detroit wants to keep him in free agency next year. Because I look at the roster, Detroit has a lot of young guys. K Cunningham, obviously, Killian Hayes for a little bit longer, Asar Thompson.
Don't say that name, man. You're gonna get Pistons fans in the ire.
But Duren, you're set. Like you had a lot of young guys on the roster. Then you had Burks and you had Bogey. Two guys Jazz fans are familiar with. This is a good way to get somebody in that late 20s age range to kind of gap because those older guys, those guys who are 30 plus, eventually going to move on. You need the balance of the younger guys and the older guys. I think Simone could be somebody that you can sign for another few years, and still have a few 3, 4, 5 good years of solid play from Simone. So
yeah. And I like that, man, because I see here, shout out to Ryan's reaction, man. One of the supporters of the channel said, why the hell are we acquiring a small forward that averages 8 points a game when we already have Bogey and Asar? We need a gosh darn shooting guard. And I agree with that. I believe that this is one of those table-setting moves that's going on right now. My guess would be that Bojan is somebody that they're probably going to move on from, or either not bringing back when that contract runs out. I do believe that he's somebody going to move on from. And the type of play that Simone brings to the table, as well as from a two-way standpoint, because I saw some clips where it seems like his defense is probably better than Bojan Bogdanovic's by a large stretch right now.
I would say so.
Yeah, it's like, and you watch Bojan, obviously. You cover Utah Jazz, again, so people understand. And it's something where I think from a small forward position, it gives you somebody who can really, really play those minutes. I think he has another jump to make in his game, just kind of looking at the style that he has. It seems like he really kind of plays within the system, but he has a little bit of wiggle to his game. He has a little bit of like some of the similar traits to Bojan, even though I believe Bojan is just kind of a better kind of straight line scorer. I think that there's a few things there that Simone brings to the table, and as you said as well, a little bit cheaper too. Bojan is making $20 million a year, and if you're looking at truly making some of these splashes, like if the Pistons do go out, I know that to a lot of fans it's a lackluster and wind up signing a Tobias in the offseason. You're going to want to complement that with probably still good rotation players who can give you some of the same things that you're getting out of Bojan. Like the most important thing we need from Bojan is his three-point shooting. And if he and Simone can hit the three kind of at a similar clip on the same volume, and he can still kind of do some of the things like space the floor a little bit, give you a little bit of defense, then it helps you save a lot of money on that contract that you can almost kind of part with Bojan, put some of that money towards Tobias rather than having them both here and having it's going to take a small bag to get Tobias Harris here in the Detroit Pistons uniform, which is something that's been kind of rumored around whether they trade for him or whether they wait until the offseason to get him. I do agree. This is not something where they can be done. The Pistons have a lot more that they need to put out there. But I know this. When you're drafting guys in the top 5, K Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Asar Thompson, you want those guys to be the guys. They have to. These are the ones that you're talking about, depending on. We just saw the Orlando Magic come in here. The Pistons play them, and you saw their drafted guys be the main ones that carried their team. If they went and they made a deal like this where they brought in Simone, people say, okay, cool, that'll complement their guys. And I think that if Cade is healthy and if Jaden Ivey was hitting his stride earlier in the season, I'm still scratching my head a little bit, Monty. But if he was hitting his stride a little bit earlier in the season, and this team was able to get some chemistry, they got 7 guys on rookie contracts right now. I do believe that this trade would make a lot more sense then. But kind of seeing a lot of the warts that's come about as the season has gone on, it kind of makes fans a little bit lackluster on a deal like this sometimes.
Yeah, I think you guys will be very happy with Simone. He's a great role player. He'll be a great role player for any team. I think it's good to have great role players as a Jazz fan. Pretty sad about it, but I understand the vision of what the Jazz are doing this year, trying to get assets, keep the cap sheet clear, and that's really the only reason I think the Jazz are trading Simone FONTECCHIO. They really like him, but they were just trying to grab some assets, and I think it's going to work out for both Detroit and for Utah. So. It's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on. Hey,
yes, thank you, man.
Come on, hitting the high notes. We'll cross pod again together. So
yeah, let's do that. Let's do that soon. Hey, look, I'm gonna keep the stream going, guys, but I just wanted to make sure that we talked about Simone FONTECCHIO. I know that was a player that a lot of us were kind of wondering about, and I'm glad that my guy here, Who Tran from Hitting the High Notes podcast, decided to give us his time and kind of break this down from a bird's eye point of view. So thank you for that, man. Blessings. We'll definitely I'll come onto your pod as well. We'll talk some ball. But thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And obviously, guys, look, the other deal that went down, and I had some other stuff that's kind of not necessarily breaking, but just kind of rumors and such. But Monte Morris, that was a player that we knew was kind of rumored to be kind of on the way out the door. For me personally, and I talked about this on a Bleacher Report stream the other day as well, I wanted the Pistons to try and find a way if they could to re-sign Monte Morris, but I think they're just kind of beyond that kind of notion that we're talking about the young guys needing to step up and kind of take the reins. You're looking at guys like Marcus Sasser, who's proving that he needs ample time, man, ample time. That's a part of the reason why I think Monte Morris became a little bit more expendable. He's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of attention, and no matter how much you love playing for your hometown team, that contract, that bag, actually, it talks more than anything else. And so I do believe that it was a situation where Monte Morris, though he wants to be here, though he's glad he got the opportunity to kind of put on that Pistons jersey for a few games, probably was not going to be here next year. And you need to be able to kind of field a team that this is what we're going to have and get these young guys ready to step up and actually play the roles that they've brought in here to play. Like, I'm ready to see this team really be able to depend on our young guys. Like I remember starting off last year and in this season saying, why can't we look at our top draft picks and the guys that we think are going to be that deal? Why can't we start to look at those guys as the guys? Like, we're looking at other teams who've kind of drafted young players. You're even looking at places like the Charlotte Hornets and Brandon Miller, who's on an absolute tear. You're looking at Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner down with the Orlando Magic, who those guys are carrying their team. I think it's time for the Pistons to either rely on their young players, put the ball in their hands, and surround them with the right complementary pieces, or you got to go in a completely different direction, but you got to do something quick. You got to make a decision one way or the other. And so I guess this is them now kind of trying in some way, shape, or form to not necessarily get ahead, but to try and catch up little by little by trading Monte Morris. And they did trade him for a Timberwolves 2030 second-round pick. That's a little far out there, man. I think my son will be ready to be drafted by the Detroit Pistons by the time that thing conveys to us. And Shake Milton and Troy Brown as part of the deal for guard Monte Morris. And again, this is about putting, the second year of their deals, Shake and Troy, and I see Marco Rolo put it in there. Their deals are not guaranteed next year. So it's either the Pistons want to kind of pick up those deals, or they cut them and waive them, or drop the option, and they just keep going. Um, as it relates to the cap space. So my guess is either they're not done, because I know that right now they're a little bit over the, I think, one spot over the max on the rosters. They got to be down to 15. They got 16 right now. So either they're going to cut somebody, or they're going to make another deal. Obviously, I believe that they're going to kind of wait this thing out until the trade deadline before they absolutely make a decision on that one way or the other. I'm hoping that there's another trade. I was on with Rod Beard earlier on our show, Wake Up Woodward, on Woodward Sports Network, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Definitely tap in there every Wednesday. Rod comes on and does two segments. The first segment is the State of Detroit, where he's the sports editor in chief for the Detroit News, so he's talking all sports with us on that one. And then the second segment, which I did, and I'm going to repost every single week back to the Woodward Pistons channel, where he's talking about the Pistons stuff, man. We're going to our Woodward Pistons diatribe straight up. Hey, what up, though, man? I see a lot of people in here. I haven't gotten on here and done a live in a long time, and I'm going to start doing those a lot more. We're going to start coming on here and talking a lot more, talking about the stuff that I'm seeing, hearing from the beat, talking about the Pistons and all that type of stuff, going through what they need to do different, just from even a standpoint of on the court type of stuff, as well as trades. And Chili, I was just about to get there, man. Per, I believe, was it Jeff Fisher? I believe it was. Let me pull it up here, man. That's where I was going to next, because it looks like I said, the Pistons aren't necessarily done. Per Jake Fisher, and I know he's with Yahoo Sports, the Pistons have been the most active team ahead of this trade deadline. And Detroit big man Isaiah Stewart remains a player of interest to New Orleans, which, if you guys have listened to some of our podcasts with Rod, then you know that for about 3 months now, maybe 3.5 or 4 months, you guys have heard me straight up talking about the fact that the New Orleans Pelicans, that they've been kind of one of those teams to look out for. I know in the Pistons PR room, with a lot of the media guys there, shout out Corey Woods from the M Live, Mike Curtis from the Detroit News, James Edwards from the Athletic, Omari Sankofa from the Detroit Free Press. When we start to talk, and Vince Ellis, shout out Vince Ellis, formerly of the Detroit Free Press, but now works directly for Platinum Equity, the Pistons ownership group, and he writes for them as well, covering Pistons and community events. And the Pelicans were a team of interest. They say, hey, keep an eye out on them. That's a team that's looking to kind of break things down. Their head coach is Willie Green, with ties back to Detroit, former UDM player. And he's from the Monty Williams coaching tree as well. If you guys remember when the Suns kind of made their run and started to kind of turn the tide, it was with Coach Monty Williams and Willie Green there as an assistant coach. And so I could definitely see those guys kind of getting together and figuring out how they can help each other right now, because there's a lot of teams, man. I'm telling you guys, there's a lot of teams here that are looking to break things down, and the Pistons have been one of those teams that have positioned themselves to be able to kind of take on the bad contracts to also try and help themselves, give other teams the cap space to go into a free agency where they want to be able to do a few more things, or maybe even restart their rebuilds. The Pelicans and everything they've done to try and become a formidable team, especially since the departure of AD, it just hasn't worked out for them. And so teams like them, teams like the Bulls, the Grizzlies, who are going through a little bit of injury issues right now, there's a couple teams out there that are looking to potentially unload some of their players. I know the Utah Jazz, too. They're still looking at potentially getting rid of a couple of their players to try and recoup some of that cap space, because the trade that they made to bring in Donovan Mitchell, or to get rid of Donovan Mitchell, it has not panned out for them at all. They got a couple high-paid players on that roster, and it's not working out for the Utah Jazz. I thought that if the Pistons were involved with a trade for them, that it would have been for like either a Laurie, but we did not have what they were seeking in a return. But really, it seems like a lot of people out there are kind of not going to play that type of ball with the Utah Jazz. But I am willing to see. I'm trying to see what this Pistons team is going to do, because I want to see them upgrade at that 4th spot. Whether that's at the expense of Isaiah Stewart or not, you know what I'm saying? You guys have heard me say this for a long time. I'm hoping that these people, the Pistons, put together a roster where our starting 4 is somebody formidable. You guys already see kind of over my right shoulder. You guys is left. Jeremy Grant up there, man. That was the last time I thought we had a legitimate four on our squad, a legit four, and it sucks. But the best stretch in Pistons kind of restore era is a 10-14 stretch with Jeremy Grant, K Cunningham. You guys have heard me talk about this before. Sadiq Bey, post All-Star break of K's rookie season. When they kind of switched to Stu, I liked everything that Stu has to bring from a hustle, toughness, intangibles. He's going to try and play a lot bigger than he is, but sometimes the metrics are what the metrics are. And when you're legit like 6'7", 6'8" power forward with long wingspan, arm wingspan is pretty decent, but hands are kind of small. And the other, defensive, the opponents can grab the defensive and offensive rebounds, just snatch them from right over your head. That's where it becomes a problem, man. When they can post you up and there's not a lot you can do to stop them, that's going to be a problem. When you cannot be a reliable kind of three-point shooter, volume three-point shooter, where they know, that's a person we have to stay home on, that's going to be a problem. We're looking at the spacing issues that K Cunningham and we're looking at the spacing issues that Jaden Ivey have to deal with on this team, and even Bojan Bogdanovic. I think about Bojan Bogdanovic last year, where the Pistons weren't really dealing with too much spacing issues because the defense just didn't care. But coming into this season with a lot of the hype and how the Pistons started off, it's weird. Teams are like, okay, let's actually gear up unless we got some scouting reports on these players. And Monty Williams talked about this in the beginning of the year. He said there's scouting reports out now on players this year that they weren't really scouting reports on these players last year. From even K, they knew where his sweet spots were. And so he was one of the few players on this squad over the last couple years that he's played that's getting double teamed and triple teamed. But coming into this season, when you're getting Jaden Ivey, when you're getting K Cunningham, when you're getting some of the plus players on the Pistons team getting double teamed, and you have Isaiah Stewart out there in the corner going, people say, well, he shoots over 30% from three. Yeah, but he has large stretches and swings in a game where he's literally missing 2, 3, 4 3-pointers in a row, or 2 and 3 3-pointers in a quarter. And the Detroit Pistons, when they lose a quarter badly, they usually have lost the whole entire game. Don't matter if it's the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or fourth quarter. Whenever they lose one badly, that is it. The momentum is gone, and they play the rest of the game or the rest of that game leading up to the end, trying to play catch up, and they usually fall apart down the stretch. And so I've always wanted them to go, like I've seen some of you guys put in the chat, and upgrade that fourth position. And I'm hoping that they do that, man. If it's Tobias Harris, I'm, as your 3-4, at least he'll make teams a little bit more honest on the defensive side of things. But I'm hoping they have a more robust plan than that right now, man. I see we need a new identity. I feel like the restore of the past is outdated. And I agree with that. Man. I wrote an article for Woodward Sports, and I actually covered it in a pod as well, where I was saying, I wanted the Pistons to create an identity. Every Detroit Pistons team of consequence, any of them that's really mattered, they had an identity. And that identity started with not just on the defensive end, but toughness, man. Absolute toughness. Teams knew when you step out here on the court with the Detroit Pistons, what you're going to get, man. And it just seems like right now, they just don't have that going on for them right now. The toughness aspect, the continuity, the plan for each other, the all-out hustle. A few of the games that I've seen the Pistons actually win this year, it was all-out hustle, straight-up hustle. And then all of a sudden, it's like the consistency or being able to string that together for multiple games is just gone. And where that surprises me is the fact that they're supposedly a young team, 7 rookie contract players. And I just don't know what's going on, man. I just don't. I rebuild the restore. It's getting to that point, man. It's getting to that point. And that's why my litmus test was wanting to see Troy Weaver make some moves at this deadline that could positively affect the floor of this team going forward. Raise that floor up a little bit. Get some NBA rotation guys in here. Make some type of a splash, even if it's a half splash. Today, I would call these they threw a couple pebbles in the water, and you saw a little bit of water come up, but that's not really even half the splash that I thought that they were going to make. Rod Beard, the same thing. He wanted to see something of consequence, and we know that Zack LaVine, they were getting close. It was something imminent. That's a name that if you're you listen to the Woodward Pistons podcast, Rod Beard and I, Rod's been bringing that name up for about 2-3 months as well. Zack LaVine. And as things got closer and got more imminent, Zack LaVine decided to play a game. You want to play a game? This man decided to saw his ankle off, man. He was like, I'm not going to Detroit. And it's just like, come on, bro. You can't be serious. It ain't even like Zack LaVine was going to be the perfect prospect to be able to bring in for these Pistons, but he would have helped somewhat. He would have brought scoring, especially if he could stay healthy, scoring, extreme pressure on the defense. He was a player that they'd have to think about at all times. At all times. And he's one of those guys you kind of put the ball in his hands, low maintenance. You don't got to worry about him there. But it kind of speaks volumes to where the Pistons organization is at right now. That's where it's at right now. Hey, Robert Ross said, Brandon, would you fire Troy Chocolate City Weaver? Be true. Be truthful. Be truthful. From my perspective, and I get it from you guys' perspective, it's just, yo, he's the GM. Are you making the moves or not? Are the moves panning out or not? And if I had to judge from you guys' perspective, I understand why people will want Troy Weaver fired. From my perspective of some of the things that I know, I just want to see him be able to do the job unencumbered. I'll put it that way. Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many kind of overarching people. Think about this. People want him fired when we kind of knew that Killian or some foreign player was going to be the pick before Troy Weaver was even the GM. Will Bynum was already working out with Killian Hayes on behalf of the Pistons organization. They were already scouting him. This was the thing. Even Sam Stick Day would tell you, of Woodward Sports would tell you, yeah, we had all heard that there was a foreign player that was going to be picked. And then it was the COVID year. You got Troy coming in literally like a month before that draft. And that's kind of the end of that story. Then Killian Hayes is the pick. He's going to be the one to take those bullets. But he's not the president of basketball operations, which means every move there, if it's going to be stamped, it's being stamped by somebody who's kind of above his pay grade. And that's kind of what's going on right now. We also heard, again, Killian Hayes brought right back up into this thing where he wanted to trade Killian in the offseason, but because the owner hired the coach, not Troy Weaver, the owner, then who actually is higher on the totem pole, the coach or the GM who does not carry the president of basketball operations title? Well, that's going to go to the coach. And so the coach decided, actually, I think I can do something with Killian Hayes. I actually prefer Killian Hayes on this roster. And you guys know, go back to the beginning of the season and everything we were reporting. I was like, look, I think Killian Hayes he should be a backup guard for this team. And I think that would have boded way more better for Killian Hayes on this squad rather than making him a starter on this team, which I just don't think he's a starter. And like all you guys know, he's not a starter. He shouldn't have been a starter, especially not over Jaden Ivey. But Monty Williams wanted Killian here, and then bada bing, bada boom. No trade goes down. I have on good authority that there were some players that Troy Weaver wanted to sign last year or trade for last year in the offseason. But what was his statement 7 days before free agency? It was, well, we're not going to make any splashes this offseason. We're going to wait till next offseason, man. That's what they said. And they said, why? Because they wanted to be able to assess this team under Monty Williams. And now that the news or kind of some rumblings come out that Killian Hayes was a player that he wanted to see, you start to see that this isn't necessarily all on Troy Weaver. So it's a little tough, man. It's a little tough to say, do we fire him? Because Troy has been involved in good basketball front office moves in his career. He just has. And at the start of this thing, Jeremy Grant, that's a player that he wanted here. The reason why Jeremy Grant's not here is not because of Troy Weaver. It's because some people in the front office did not trust in Jeremy Grant long term. Then what did Jeremy Grant do? He went away, went to Portland, and became the player on the arc that Troy Weaver said he was going to become. I would have liked to see what that panned out to be here in the Detroit Pistons uniform. He three-point shooting has gotten better. His facilitation has gotten better. He played off ball pretty well. He was sharing the rock pretty good. All of the things that people thought he wasn't doing here. It's just like, man. So I don't know. 7 Mile B, he said, B, you truly are positive, bro. The trades were very mid, fam. 2 expiring for 3 expiring. What is Troy doing? The only thing he can do right now, I wanted him to go out there and make a splash. Trust me. It's not necessarily about being positive. It's about first kind of making sense of the deals so that people at least know what's going on. And then beyond that, definitely letting y'all know, I wanted them to do something more big. I wanted the Pistons to do something way more major than what they've done so far. I did believe that the Pistons needed to exchange some of the players they have on this roster right now that they're playing on regular rotation minutes for like better players. They just don't have an NBA rotation. They don't at all. They got guys who, when we're in the press conferences and we're at media availability, they're young guys on rookie contracts. Some of them are saying, yo, I'm still learning the NBA. I'm still trying to learn this. I'm still trying to learn that. And then the vets that they got, they're just older, man. They are so much older now. Like when you look at Burks and you look at Bojan, though those guys can give you like those good games, maybe 2 games in a row, 3 games in a row, the defense and some of the other components that you're looking for from them, it's just not there. And so I believe that they're trying to get some rotation people here. They're trying to get their book set. But at this point in time, trust me, 7 Mile B, my litmus test was like, yo, I want to see the team go out there and make a splash now. Show us that you're serious about changing the culture of this team now. I don't want these young guys to continue to play under this, man. Like you see them trying to keep the spirits up. We see them in the press conferences. I see them at practice. I see them at the performance center. We get to speak to them, and you see they're trying to keep their heads high. But it's only so much losing and getting punched, in the nads that you can take until your whole spirits are just deflated. And I wanted them to be able to do something, not like they were going to go on some magnificent run, but to show these young players that you're serious about moving their future in the right direction and giving them the same types of players that we saw Houston kind of go out. Now, we know Houston has faded a little bit. As it relates to that start, but at least give them some players. I see Marvin Toby said, let the young players grow. And I think that they need better players around them to let these young players grow. I just do, man. And that's kind of where it's at right now. They said this stated that the Pistons are going to extend Simone FONTECCHIO contract long term. I know he's an RFA. I can see that happening in terms of what he gives you. It's going to be very, very similar to what they're getting out of Bojan. He's had some games as well where he's kind of popped off and scored 20 points here and there for the Utah Jazz. He was starting for the Utah Jazz. If you just tapped in now, you can go back to the beginning of this and listen to what Hu Tran. He covers the Utah Jazz on the Hitting High Note podcast as well. I wanted to be able to have him on to be able to break some things down to you guys. So Eastside Johnny, he said, Kool-Aid, looking at this roster, right? Do you think the front office failed Cade and you rather them start over again with the new front office? I believe that the entire front office, I believe the Pistons organization has definitely failed K Cunningham. 100% failed K Cunningham. When you get a player that you consider a generational talent by their definition and a player that you consider a connector by their definition, 100% you have failed this man when you refuse or have failed to put the right types of players around him. I thought Jeremy Grant was a good starting piece. I thought that was a good start kind of early in that thing. And they brought Jeremy Grant in the year before K Cunningham. I'm sorry. They traded for Jeremy Grant during the same time that they were drafting Killian Hayes, Isaiah Stewart, and Sadiq Bey. I liked what I saw out of Jeremy Grant and K Cunningham, especially that second half. I thought that they worked pretty well together. But yeah, if you just want me to say it straight up, yeah, they failed Cade. They failed Cade. And I see D-Buck. He said, did the front office really fail Cade, or did Cade 3 year of injury fail the organization? You can't have build around a player that injured. Well, I don't know. The injury thing is kind of a little bit overblown to me. K Cunningham didn't get injured his second year. He just didn't. And when you look at some of the injuries he had during the first year, it was like COVID was one of the things that had him miss games. Another one was like an ankle sprain. That just happens. His second year when he missed all that time, it was because of corrective surgery from something that K Cunningham said, I can play through this. I played with this kind of fracture in my leg since high school. And the Pistons actually were the ones that put the pressure on him to say, hey, just sit out this year and get the surgery. I was able to talk to his brother at LCA face to face, and he was like, yeah, he wants to still play. The Pistons think it's better. And I was almost this close to saying, Cade is not going to get the surgery. He's going to play. But they told me, just wait a second. And literally the next day, the news came out that Cade is going to get this surgery. If he had gotten injured in that season and that was the need for the surgery, I would be a lot more concerned. But when you're doing a surgery like that, that's affecting your entire leg, where they went and I think they effectively put a rod in his leg, I would assume that all of the workouts he did this summer, if you understand like those types of things, those types of rehabs, they put more stress on your body. Cade just never had a break. And that's something that Monty Williams talked about coming into this season, is that he's dealing with what's called, fatigues right now, fatigue from the rehab. And they have to be more mindful of that. And during a season like this, they're going to find their ways to get him some rest. And they got to do it in some ways in which they don't get in trouble with the NBA, since they're cracking down now on load management type stuff and just missing games here and there. And so, yeah, I believe that he absolutely needs a little bit more rest, especially if you're looking at the fact that you haven't done right by him. But if you have this fear that you don't think K Cunningham is going to be the guy that can kind of stay healthy, and that you can build something aptly behind him, then yeah, you gotta have to do something about that. The problem is they kind of pinned a lot of this rebuild on K Cunningham being that guy. And that's what's so surprising to me, that they haven't put necessarily the right pieces around him. Do I believe they got him the right young guys that you can run with? Yeah, but having the right young guys void of any real vets that can kind of take this thing to the next level, I think you're failing those guys. That's what I wrote in my article some months back, is that they are in the process right now of failing their own restore. Straight up. He said too many excuses for Cade if he's the franchise. There's not really excuses for Cade. You plug Cade into this lineup right now and he never misses a game. This roster is still, I'm not going to call it trash because I think they got some good pieces, but this roster is not going to win. That's just it. Point blank, period. It's not going to win. And honestly, if you think you have those concerns with Cade, I'm just not going to play him like that, man. I'm not going to risk anything long term with an asset like K Cunningham. Whether you think he's the guy or not, you don't risk that. You don't. If you think you can trade him, the one thing you want, if he's going to play or if you're going to trade him, is health. You want to make sure that guy is as healthy as possible. Same thing they did with Monte Morris. They brought him here. He had 1 year left on his deal. They always knew that they were going to flip him. They made sure that guy got healthy. A lot of us fans like, why ain't he playing? Why ain't he playing? Why ain't he playing? I think he would have helped out K Cunningham a lot to start this season. But instead, they decided, look, he ain't going to be here. We're going to just get him healthy so we can get him into a trade. And that's what wound up happening. With K Cunningham, if this team is going to be performing the way it is, I know he wants to be on the court. From everything I know, he wants to be on the court. And we saw his best stretches this year. K Cunningham's talent is not the issue here. I think the main in his injury is not the main issue here. The main issue here right now is what this front office has failed to do for K Cunningham. That's the biggest issue. We've seen teams of the past, and we can see some of these other squads, if they lose one of their guys, they don't crater. They don't. Why? Because the roster all around their main guys is set up much better than what the Pistons have here right now. So it's like, that's just how I see it. And you guys are definitely free to disagree. I ain't gonna take that from nobody. I know there's a lot of people out there on the other side of it, man, that kind of see some other stuff, man. But let me see here. Question. Is Cade just not a point guard, and we've forced him into that position? Cade passing and turnovers is a weakness right now, and now he can definitely grow, but his scoring is his strength. You know what, Marvin? This is something that since he's been here, I've actually been more and more and more in line with this notion of play him a little bit off ball more. The one thing they wanted to do coming into this season was get his usage rate down, and then all of a sudden you look and he's right back into the top 10, I believe, of like usage rate. Up over like 31, 32%. They wanted to get that down like 22, 23%. And they said that they were going to do that by playing them off ball more. The whole Monty Williams 0.5-second offense, the same way he took the ball a little bit out of Devin Booker's hands, they were supposed to do that here. But they had a lot better players in Phoenix. Like, you think about just their wings there. They had Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Kelly Oubre. The Pistons don't have three players on this roster outside of Cade that you would even put on their level of play. That was just their wings. And they still had DeAndre Ayton, who, no matter what people think about the beef they had, he's still a plus player. I would take all three of those wings and DeAndre Ayton, run them out there with K Cunningham right now, and you have a completely different roster in a rotation ASAP that's going to actually perform a lot better than what we've seen. And that's kind of been my disdain. But yeah, to kind of directly answer your question, I do want to see K Cunningham a little bit more off ball. When you look at all of his strengths, when you look at his efficiency, all those numbers start to jump when you get K Cunningham off ball, especially when he's able to kind of move around a little bit, get into the corners, get to the elbow from extended out to the three-point line. He and Jaden Ivey, I think they work kind of well in that regard too. Jaden Ivey's able to get downhill with his speed, throw the ball back out to K Cunningham, and he's been hitting some threes. Some of the last few games I was at where I saw these guys kind of play together, that is something that I was actually kind of remarking about. Shout out to my guy Jeremy Allen of the Michigan Chronicle. I usually sit with him in that section 104. I know some of you guys, when you guys go to the games, you guys say what up to me. You guys say what up to him as well. And that's what we remark about. We say, you know what, Cade and Ivy are actually starting to find some type of chemistry. And I do believe that it helps Cade. When you can get Cade outside of these situations where the defense is completely keying in on just him, and you're able to destabilize the defense with a play, with kind of a speedster like a Jaden Ivey, or if you can get a real point guard to kind of play that, like one of those pure point guards to play that position. And I think it's why Chris Paul helped out the Phoenix Suns so much and helped out Devin Booker so much. When they made this type of a change to Devin Booker, get him off ball a little bit more, his 3-point percentage went up. 3-point attempts went up just a little bit. His 3-point makes, though, per game went up. His free throw percentage and his free throw attempts went up as well. There was a lot of positive changes for Devin Booker in that system. They just had better players and a player that could actually play that point guard position around him. If you're going to remove K Cunningham off ball, you're putting him in a position to where he's at the peril of whoever is holding on to that rock, of making sure they can make that right play for K Cunningham. And that's kind of been one of your issues there, man. Is Jaden Ivey that guy? I would have loved to see that kind of start from the beginning of the season. So when you get to halfway through the season, you have your full litmus test at least. At least you got 30, 40 games under your belt to see these guys develop some chemistry. See these guys figure out how they like to work. Because you don't just throw something out there and it just goes. And y'all know on the Woodward Pistons podcast, we use cooking analogies a lot, man. Sometimes you got to let things steep. Sometimes you got to let things boil a little bit. Sometimes you got to let things kind of bake over a long period of time on low heat. They haven't allowed any of that to happen with this young core. You can't call it a core four when you're not even playing these guys together. They're not the core of anything. They're just, at this point in time, individual players who have some pretty individual skills, but they have no chemistry. They don't know how to play together. They don't have any vets that are really helping them. It's sad when you look back on Corey Joseph and Rodney McGruder as probably some of the more informative and teaching vets that they've had on this squad, man. And now all of a sudden you kind of march forward in this restore, and Monty Williams comes in, wants to mix in a little bit more of the experienced players in the squad, and you just don't really have really good experienced players. And the ones you did have started off the season injured. That's just a recipe for disaster, man. But I do personally want to see Cade off ball a little bit more, but I want to see it if they get the right point guard and the right ball handlers around him. I like K Cunningham off ball. I like seeing what he was doing from like the elbow extended, being able to kind of get into some ISO where it's a little bit more difficult for teams to be able to double team him as well, because he's been getting hit with major double teams and chips and triple teams this season. Every pick and roll, you got a kind of a hedge or a spy defender kind of looking at him as well, and he's getting downhill. He's throwing the ball out to the corners, and people are missing. When you look at it, what is it called? Man, gosh, I'm forgetting the term, but like attempted assists, potential assists. K Cunningham is missing out on a lot of assists. He is a really good point guard, but on this team, we actually need him off ball to take better advantage of the personnel that we have, because it's kind of bleak when you're throwing the ball out there. If Bojan's not hitting and Burks is not hitting, then Cade is kind of like one of your top catch and shoot 3-point shooters. And he shoots better that way than he does from off the dribble as well. Let me see. You see Killian and Wiseman going next. If you want my honest opinion, I'm hoping that's the case. I'm really hoping that's the case. We've heard some of the noise about Killian pop up, that his camp, I don't know where he gets the kahunas to say, hey, look, man, me and my camp went out of here. It's like, bro, your opportunity right now is because the Detroit Pistons and Monty Williams has said, hey, we want to see what this kid can do underneath this type of a situation. But I don't know, man. This situation with Killian has just been one of the biggest head scratchers in my life. When we showed up to training camp this year and Monty Williams was just kind of bringing up Killian Hayes unsolicited, we were excited about Monte Morris and about what Marcus Sasser could bring to the table. Because that's a guy I know I haven't brought up his name a lot, but Marcus Sasser is a guy who's continued to go out there and light things up. I do believe he's more of a combo guard, less of an actual kind of facilitator and playmaker, but a combo guard who can play make off of the gravity that he draws. When he starts hitting 1 bucket, 2 bucket, 3 bucket in a row from 3, getting into that lane and getting that floater going, then all of a sudden you start to see the defense react to every time he dribbles the ball. When Killian Hayes dribbles the ball into the paint, they don't really have to react. They're like, what's he gonna do? Brick or floater? So everybody stays home. People, when they look at Killian Hayes, they're like, what's he gonna do? Get to the lane and kind of flail? Like the defense does not react, and everybody stays home on the shooters on the outside, and it just like stalls the Pistons offense every single time. And Killian Hayes is not playing defense at a clip well enough, in my opinion, to warrant kind of being out there like that. I would rather go with Marcus Sasser, who's not necessarily looked at as a defender, but he's putting a lot of pressure on the other team's defense to make a pretty good pretty big effect. Chili said LeBron, Kobe, KD, not PGs, but high usage. We could do the same. We can, but you got to put more players around them. Even Kobe, when the team around him was a little bad, that man tried to force his way to the Detroit Pistons. He told them, and it was a deal in place for the Pistons during the Joe Dumars era, was going to trade Richard Hamilton and some pieces for Kobe Bryant until the Lakers actually went out there and made a deal, refitted that team for him, got him a real big, got him another point guard, got him some things going on. And then the Lakers kind of re-upped and were able to go out there and make some things happen. You know what I'm saying? And some of these guys, they played with some talent, man. They really did. Let me see here, though, if there's more questions in here, because I'm going to shut it down soon, man. I appreciate you guys being here. Definitely, if you're on YouTube or if you can get over to the YouTube stream, definitely put a like on there, man. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to try and do this a lot more. We're going to try and get Table Talk going back again. I talked to Sean Murphy and some of the old crew, and we're going to try and get this stuff popping again, man. I miss doing this. Life has been crazy. You know, my wife, we were high risk with the pregnancy and everything. We had a baby, healthy baby. Mom had a little bit of a scare right after the pregnancy, right after giving birth. But by the graces of God, man, everything is definitely good right now. So, man, I'm definitely praising God for that. And I'm thanking you guys for a lot of the well wishes. And then, you know, there's been a lot of change at Woodward Sports as well. A lot of my brothers, a lot of my friends, a lot of the guys that I love, situation wasn't necessarily befitting to them. And they had to move on for the better of their careers. And for some of them, the better of just life in general. And I took that kind of hit me, man. And that did. You know, we developed some pretty good relationships that we're going to carry on. But some of these things they just kind of help to kind of destabilize some things for a little bit. But I'm going to be jumping back into it a little bit more, especially with the access that we have with the Pistons and such. I will be at March Madness. Tom Mazaway, Braylon Edwards, Michigan great Braylon Edwards, and myself, we're all credentialed. We're going to be at March Madness at the games here in Detroit, being able to look at some of these players that are at the top, man. So, you know, I did want to say, let me see here. Kool-Aid, Eastside Johnny, as a new content creator, what advice you got for a new content creator getting started? Honestly, when I got started, I didn't have too much advice coming my way. And as I've gotten into this now, it's been 2-3 years. You know, I had Rob Beard helping me learn how to cover the Pistons, but neither one of us had really done any content creation beyond writing articles. The one thing I can definitely tell you is to just be you, man. Speak your truth. Be true to what you know. And don't be afraid of people disagreeing. Don't be afraid of people calling you out. Just kind of really be true to you, man. Be true to you. Be true to what you see. Be true to what you know. If you feel something passionately, if you feel like you're right on something, make sure you're well studied on it. Make sure you're versed on it. Make sure you have some facts to back you up on what you're presenting. But at the end of the day, be true to you. Don't be afraid to collaborate either. Don't be afraid to do that. I don't believe I'm bigger than the platform is far bigger than me. And anybody that I collaborate, I have to look at as somebody that's far bigger than myself as well, man. But ultimately, just be you. Be you. That's what I can say. At first, I was a little nervous about all this stuff, but we're just talking ball. We're doing the same thing that we've done since middle school, since high school, college, and what we do if we at the bar, if we're just out with the fellas, just talking shop, talk ball. But let me see here. T-Roll Bigums. Oh man, Monty's a garbage coach. I don't think that Monty's a garbage coach. I just don't believe that Monty Williams was equipped to coach this type of a team. Something that he talked about in training camp was that he wanted a more veteran-laden team. And you got to understand, like, the way he got here wasn't necessarily by way of Troy Weaver, it was by Tom Gores. And if the notion is that they're going to start to refit this team to Monty Williams' system, then I can understand why we've seen some of the issues we've seen here. To me, though, it does. I still scratch my head a little bit because I'm just like, Jaden Ivey is Jaden Ivey, man. That guy needs to get the ball and he needs to play. I don't really care about your system. Let Jaden Ivey sink or swim. You shouldn't be the reason as a coach that Jaden Ivey is sinking or swimming. Not at all. You should be the reason why Jaden Ivey is going out there improving what he is. Just the same way they allowed Killian to prove what he is. Fargon, he said, what's the latest on Killian? It's still the same that it was, man, that his camp supposedly wants out and that there's a couple of teams that are interested. We don't know what those deals look like. I don't know if people are looking at Killian as a deal like going out, but then incoming you have to take on some other teams' trash, or if there's a team out there like the Grizzlies who are kind of injury riddled right now, who will just take a flyer on Killian Hayes for like a second round pick or something like that, or a future second round pick. If that happened right now, I would get on this. I would start the stream up immediately. I don't care when it dropped, man. If they traded him at 2 a.m. in the morning, I would get right back on this stream and start things up. And we'll be on here. We have a party. At least I know you be here, Fargon. Let me see if there's any other questions, man. Definitely, man. You guys put some Kool-Aid is Kobe Bryant, man. Hey, I like that, man. Yeah, I was definitely busy, man. Hey, Diz, I'm seeing a lot of the guys in here that are some of the regulars, man. Definitely, man. Thank you guys on the congratulations. Dwayne, the Pistons got too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah. That's been something that we've talked about all year. And thinking about Dwayne, man, when I think about Dwayne Casey, I see him around Little Caesars Arena at some of these home games. He and I, we talk, we do text. He's been a really, really good confidant, somebody who's given me some advice. And he's kind of let me in a little bit on what he's doing. At first, he was scouting college players and college prospects. Over the last season, though, this season starting, they actually had him scouting as well. Some Pistons, not Pistons, but NBA players as well. So obviously, we know that there's some trades that were going to happen. Otherwise, why have him scouting NBA players as well? And you saw the latest video going around where he was scouting a French prospect that the Pistons might be looking at for the draft. But I do want to talk about that because beyond just what they do for this trade thing, I want to see this Pistons team honestly not get younger. This draft pick that's coming up, I'm hoping that this is something. Obviously, they can't trade it right now because of the protections that are on it, and because they can't trade it at this moment. But when they get to that trade deadline, I'm hoping that all of these kind of table setter moves that they've already made, that they can package kind of that fifth draft pick with maybe another young talent and be able to bring some players of consequence into this organization. Let me say this to you all very plain and very clearly as I look right into the camera. You guys, no Detroit Pistons fan out there, especially the freaking diehards, man. There's 134 of you on here, man. So definitely hit that like button on the stream to support the content. But y'all don't deserve this on any level. On any level, man, to go to the arena and no, it's not full, but you're seeing 10,000, 12,000 people by the end of the games still supporting. You're looking at the attendance numbers and you're seeing the Pistons top 15, 16 in the league still. It's like fans are still going out there to show, look, even though it's a little bit down right now and it's been down for some time, we're still here supporting because I know that you all care. Bro, the Pistons, that's my squad, man. That was my team. Like, I love the Lions. Obviously, we love our Tigers. The Red Wings had a great stretch when I was growing up. I was one of those black kids that had the rollerblades, had the net, had the hockey stick and everything because they were just winning championships. They were going on long runs as well. But the Pistons, that was my team. You want to talk about the one that I felt absolutely in love with? It was the Detroit Pistons, man. To see this happen, and since, Bill Davidson has kind of passed away, Tom Gores says he wants to win. He's, in my opinion, I think he's becoming a better owner, but this has just been depressing. I'll be just straight up with you. When you love something so much and it just doesn't do you right, it becomes a situation where it's depressing. And one thing I know about Detroit sports fans is we're diehards, man. This isn't a situation where we're just kind of like, oh yeah, that's just the Pistons. Nah, like we're not like LA fans where it's just kind of like, oh, well, I can go to the Clippers game if this ain't happening for me with the Lakers. I can just go to the Lakers game if this ain't happening for me over here. Or I can just be a Sacramento Kings fan now that they're doing no. That's not who we are. That's not how we're made. That's not how we're cut. You cut us open and we bleed Detroit. That's just how it is. No matter where you are in the state of Michigan, Detroit sports has been something that to these diehards, it matters, man. So I get it. I 100% get it, man. Trying to cover this stuff has been tough, man. It's been absolutely tough. Absolutely tough. And I want these guys to get this thing right because this isn't something that any of us deserve, man. From '08 to 2024, Pistons have been bad, but it all started with trading Billups. Oh man, I ain't even want to really bring that. Remember that, man. Yeah, that's a tough one. When they went and they kind of put their hopes in Rodney Stuckey as kind of being the future and decided to part ways with Chauncey Billups and thought that they could use that cap space on the other end to kind of rebuild. But Chauncey Billups was just one of those guys who you saw when he went to Denver, absolutely how he kind of changed things for that franchise, man. Carmelo Anthony was the guy. But they weren't that squad until they got Chauncey Billups there. I see Kevin Ali should be the coach. Marvin Talbot, Asar would have had an easier transition. Whether it's Kevin Ali or anybody that Troy Weaver picked, I do 100% believe that Troy Weaver should have been able to pick this coach. But that's what I keep telling you guys. There's too many cooks in the front, in the kitchen, in this front office. He wasn't able to hire his coach. He put together a squad. He put together a team that he knows where they click, and then he wasn't able to go and ultimately get their coach. When you don't allow that GM to kind of fit the talent that he's trying to bring in with the right coach, especially when there's been some other things going on top of that, I think you're absolutely destabilizing and doing your rebuild the wrong way, man. You're undercutting yourself. Now all of a sudden you got to go and rework your roster to fit another coach's style. What is that going to do to these young players that you're bringing in? What is that going to say to the rest of the league, man? That's my thing. Like, what is that going to say to the rest of the league and to other young players coming in here as well? That just doesn't make sense to me at all. It just shows that the organization is a little bit in flux right now, and that can they be trusted? Can you trust what your GM is saying to you? Are you going to get kind of somebody going to come and undercut you, even though you're the GM? Is somebody going to just step in and say, you know what? I know what Troy wants to do, but we're not going to go in that direction. We're going to go in this direction. The one thing I know is this, and I have my curiosities here. Troy Weaver knew Sadiq Bey on the AAU scene. And I'm not saying he's some world beater, but I thought he worked for the team that they were putting together here. He's a guy who there's some skills and some talents here that we could have definitely utilized as a part of this squad. And he was building chemistry with the players that were here. When he got traded, it was for a player that has a pretty interesting agent history. And you guys know we have an agent in our front office as well. Sometimes it just makes me think, what's going on here? Because I don't think that that's a deal that was necessarily started or predicated by Troy Weaver. Organic Lindo, I appreciate all you guys. It's when I turn this on and I know that there are people out there who care, that's why I'm doing this. You know, I'm not looking at myself as anything special. I just love the Pistons. I love talking it. And I'm glad that I have the opportunity to report what the organization is saying on a credential level and to be able to try and represent you all as well in that room. I said this on a couple of the podcasts. I'm going to say this here on the live. I'm hoping to create an environment and a relationship with you guys in which I can represent your voice in the way that PR wants it represented in that room, Pistons PR, appropriately and professionally. Obviously, some of the things we'll talk about off the cuff or in certain types of ways. I'll be able to kind of take the gist of what we're talking about and going to these press conferences, especially, we're about 30 games out now from the end of the season, which means Troy Weaver is going to, and all the Pistons are going to have an end of the season kind of exit interviews. And I'm able to kind of take questions in and be able to talk to them. We haven't gotten the opportunity to talk to Troy Weaver in a long time. So I'm eager for that. And I'm hoping that as we do more of these lives, more of the questions that are coming in, they can help to influence the articles that are written. It'll help to influence the content that's going on. And it'll help to influence the questions that are asked. Obviously, guys, understand I have a professional kind of facade that I must maintain. Certain questions, obviously, are going to be questions that I'm going to have to be work a certain way, and it has nothing to do about keeping a job or not, because the Pistons don't pay me. You know what I'm saying? The Pistons do not pay me at all. Woodward Sports, and in terms of what the coverage that I do for Pistons, I'm telling you guys, labor of love. I get paid to do some things for Woodward Sports. I'm social media manager there. Writing some articles there, on the show Wake Up Woodward. I do a lot of sound technician for a lot of different shows. I did my stuff for the Lions this year at the Bullseye Event Group. That's been awesome, kind of being a part of the Lions coverage team for Woodward Sports. But I'm telling you guys, the Pistons coverage is something in which if I stop doing this, I don't know what Pistons coverage there would be at Woodward Sports, and I would not lose money in my paycheck from Woodward Sports either. So I'm trying to be as consistent as I can be. I'm going to bring a lot more, but it's because I miss you guys. I miss this type of stuff. I miss getting on here, whether you agree, whether we disagree, feeling the ultimate passion from the fans, because it brings me back to a time that I'm hoping we can get to, and that's a time where a lot of people cared about the Pistons, man. It's sad to kind of see what's going on with them at this point in time. Troy wasn't able to make moves he wanted to this summer either. Dwayne Pierce, you're exactly right. There were moves that I know he wanted to make, and he wasn't able to make them. And I'm going to protect my guy. I'm going to protect the sources. I'm not going to put that out like the specifics, but understand that there were some things that he wanted to do and get right last summer. And now he's going to have to do it this summer, but it's going to be to the guys of fitting this team to Monty Williams. But look, guys, I'm about to break this down now. I appreciate you guys being here, Sports on Air. Thank you, man. Hardworking man. Love the effort, Kool-Aid. This is So Detroit. This is everybody. This is everybody. Like I said, there's people on here who care about the Detroit Pistons. And to me, that matters. As long as there's people that care, I'm going to try and still come out here and do what I have to do, man. That's what I'm going to just do. I love this stuff. I love the Pistons. I love you guys. I love when I'm out at LCA. Monty is dating Killian. Hey, Apollo, come on, my man. But I love this stuff, man. As long as there's people that care, I'm going to try and do what I do. In this community, it's a lot of people across this community who are doing this too. I'm not the only one. There's Kuka Hill, there's Everything King, there's Downtown Deuce, there's Pistons Talk and Anthony Colombo kind of running that. There's Buffs on Podcast, there's Everything Pistons, there's Fleet, Pistons Fleet, there's the Pistons Pulse, there's our main beat writers who I talk to these guys, man. We keep each other's spirits up, man, in that media room. It is not, I'm telling you guys, we try to be as professional as possible. But a lot of guys in that beat room, we grew up like here. We grew up watching the Pistons. And even though they get disconnected a little bit, you start to get to the point where you see, this stuff matters to them, man. You see it tugging on people's hearts, man. Pistons powered, Detroit Bad Boys, my guy Sean Corp. I don't want to miss anybody from Half Court, Sean Murphy. There's a lot of people out here who are doing this. I'm just trying to make sure, at least from my perspective, that I'm giving you guys what I can as well, because I absolutely love what you guys bring to this also, man. So thank you guys. I see a lot of the support in the chat, man. Ryan P. Thank you guys, man. Straight up. I'm going to try and continue to do this. I absolutely need you guys to continue to support, man. That's why I say hit the like button. That's what kind of helps me understand and gives me the motivation to continue to do this stuff, man. My family is supporting this as well. My son, Jeremiah, we call him Kid Kool-Aid. I've been taking him around, been showing him the ropes, been teaching him this stuff. Man, this guy been running around in a Pistons jersey since he could run. He was crawling in my old Grant Hill jersey, teaching him the love of the game as well. He was born in North Carolina. When me and my wife first got married, her family was going to go off to Cambodia as missionaries. So we moved there for a little bit to give her some time with her parents before they left. And my son was born there. And about 3 months later, we moved back to Detroit. But everything was Pistons, Lions, Tigers, Red Wings. If I could turn this camera around right now, you guys will see his net. You'll see his basketball rim over there. You'll see some stuff kind of in my studio area. And now he's out there trying to do his thing, learn how to report, learn how to write, learn how to break down the game. But the thing I haven't had to teach him really is learn how to love the Detroit Pistons. And I told him it's going to be so much sweeter for him because he hasn't seen what I've seen from the Detroit Pistons. And I know that when they get back, and I am praying that they get back, I know that little Kool-Aid, man, he is going to he's going to love it, man. He's going to love it. I feel bad for him. So definitely, man, if you guys are ever on Twitter or whatever, man, say what up to him. He's trying to keep it positive. I'll be telling him, hey, son, you probably don't need to make the in-game graphics for this one, man. Like, he'll put, like, the final score graphic up, and I'm like, it's all right, son. I know that you care, even though they lost. But let's not remind the people out there they lost, man. But he's trying to do his thing, man. It's amazing to see his passion just kind of blossom. And now he's trying to do graphics. He's trying to highlight the players. He's trying to, we're getting him to the game so he can do his in-game report. Like, I'm running around doing my stuff. I didn't even really put him up to this. He just started kind of doing this himself. And I'm doing my press conference stuff and my article. And I get back, I look on social media, and he's doing his own thing. And so I'm just like, you know what? This is what the Detroit Pistons community is about. This is what it continues to inspire. And I'm hoping that we can get back to Detroit Pistons winning basketball again. And I don't mean like underneath SVG in the first year underneath Dwayne Casey, where they did make the playoffs 1 year underneath SVG, 1 year underneath Dwayne Casey. It feels like so long ago, but they did make the playoffs twice in the last eight seasons. Oh, man, dog, I remember we went to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 straight times, dog. It's tough. It's tough, man. But we're gonna keep the train going, man. Definitely love you guys. Blessings to you all. I can't wait for March Madness. I can't wait to be able to look at some of these prospects, because even if the Pistons trade that first pick, which I think they should, Troy Weaver and his organization has shown a proficiency at being able to trade back into the first round and be able to get what they want. Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, Marcus Sasser, those types of players were secondary picks aside from their first pick they had in the first round. So, hey, man, I'm going to sign off now. As always, it's your boy Brandon Dan, aka Detroit Kool-Aid. I'm going to continue to try and bring it on this Woodward Pistons channel. I'm going to try and do a couple lives a week, and we're going to try and get Table Talk back going. Like I said, changes to the platform every Wednesday. You'll get about 12 to 15 minutes from Rob Beard and myself via the Wake Up Woodward podcast, the Wake Up Woodward morning show at Woodward Sports. Tap in with us, man. Definitely go to Woodward Sports YouTube right now. You'll be able to see our first 3 episodes. We just launched on Monday, Wake Up Woodward. It's hosted by myself, Brandon Dent, aka Detroit Kool-Aid, the Detroit Pistons beat writer and reporter, credentialed for Woodward Sports, as well as Matthew Broder, who is Woodward Sports' Detroit Lions and Detroit Tigers credentialed beat writer and reporter. So you're going to be able to get a lot of kind of firsthand, kind of behind the scenes reporting and just news, information, videos, clips, interviews of players, interviews of coaches directly from our show. You're going to get more of the professional take on your teams on that show. And that's what we're looking to do, cover all Detroit sports. So appreciate you guys for tapping in. And I'm going to probably be back Thursday night. I'm hoping like around 7 o'clock. I have my good buddy Sean Murphy on with me as well from Half Court. I think from 7 to 8. But yeah, thank you guys for tapping in, man. It's all love. Go Pistons, y'all. Go Pistons. God bless you guys.